Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're looking at Tata Steel Chess. This time we are looking at round 11, the latest result. We have in the game between Dutch Grandmaster Jorden Van Foreest with the white pieces versus Indian Grandmaster Pentala Harikrishna with the black pieces. I just want to say real quick, I want to give a shout out to the player Dodecahedron, who was able to guess the female player up top in my last video, who was Georgian Grandmaster Nana Dzagnidze. I think I kind of butchered that a little bit, but shout out to Dodecahedron for being the first to guess the full name of the player correctly. And again, thank you guys for participating, those of you who threw guesses out there. Same thing applies. If you can be the first to tell me who this female player is up here, I'll be glad to shout you out on the next video. So let's get right into this game. You know, of course, like, subscribe, do all that stuff you're supposed to do. Help my videos blow up. Share the links, etc., etc. All right, so this game started out simple enough. Quiet Joko piano line, right? No Evans Gambit, anything like that. Just typical stuff. And sometimes the games wind up looking similar to Ruy Lopez positions, right? Closed games, not a lot of action. So we have a typical position here. And go right through the opening. Rook e1. White is just preparing to play d4 at some point. Castle, knight bd2. And again, in typical Ruy Lopez fashion, many times that knight will go to f1, g3, or e3 with play on the king side. And eventually hoping to open up the game with d4. And that way white's bishops can come to life also. a6, a4, and now knight g4. So here's the beginning of some enterprising play and preparation for Pentala Harikrishna. Sometimes games just end in the draw right here. After rook e2, the knight goes back to f6, the rook goes back to e1, and then the players repeat. But here, the players had something else in mind. Pentala played king h8. Obviously, it seems like he had some preparation here, because after h3, again, you know, I would have just played knight f6, right? Not being prepared here, knight f6, and perhaps the game would have continued on in these rather placid Joko piano lines. And here's just a sample of how that could have gone, right? Nothing wrong with playing in this manner. All right, but Harikrishna had something up his sleeve. So after h3, he played this dynamic continuation f5, obviously willing to give up a piece here. Van Foreest decides to cut off the action of the bishop on c5, and he throws in this move d4. And we're going to get back to all of this later, but I want to go through the main moves first, and then we'll come back and analyze in the post mortem here. So e takes d4, h takes g4, and now Harikrishna decides to play d3 here. Better here is f takes g4, and let's say knight d4, bishop d4, c takes, knight takes rook e3, and then queen f6, attacking on the f2 square. Again, we're going to come back later. The game continued on. Bishop d3, and now Pentala took here f takes g4, knight d4. Some pieces came off, and we have the imbalance whereby black is going to have 3 pawns for the piece. All right, sometimes it's enough, sometimes it's not. All right, it really depends on other factors in the position. So queen f6 here, and you can see there's a lot of pressure on the f2 square. and queen c2. All right, c5 from Harikrishna, bishop e3. So basically all Van Foreest wants to do at this point is basically slow play this, meaning to slow black's attack down to a halt, and he's going to do this by trading pieces, and whereby he would just simply argue that being up a piece in this particular position is worth more than the 3 pawns. One thing I will say is that even though black has these extra pawns, none of them are far advanced or passed or anything like that, and his pawn structure is not particularly the greatest on top of that, right? Because for instance, his pawns on the G file are doubled, his D pawn is backward. All right, so it's not like he has some free rolling passers or something like that. All right, so he's up, he has those pawns, but they can't really be pushed without some kind of extensive preparation. Bishop e5. So Pentala here, of course, is going for the attack. He wants to mate. Bishop c4, bishop d7, and I like this move, bishop d5 by Van Foreest. Right, he's just holding the position and keeping black from having any meaningful, being able to build up any meaningful attack here. Rook a b8, knight g3, b5, trade. Rook comes in. Of course, Pentala is trying to get the remaining pieces in the game. Rook a2, rook fb8, rook d2, and all Van Foreest is doing here is just consolidating the position. b3, rook 5 to b6, rook takes a5, and now bishop c6. Bishop comes off. That bishop was too powerful on d5. That's not a move that Pentala really wanted to make, but the bishop is too strong. Rook takes c6, knight f1, rook c b6, more pressure on the b pawn, g3, and now queen h3. And now you can see all the highlights that I put here. And okay, this is what I mean, or here's an example rather of slow playing as white. So white could play this plan: rook d3, bishop to f4, knight e3, and then the rook, rook up to a7. Okay, so that would be an example of just consolidating, not rushing anything. Okay, and white would be good there. Okay, already white has a nice advantage in the position. Black has not shown enough compensation for his material deficit. And you can also see in this position at this point, black is only a pawn up now. Okay, for all of his troubles. Instead of doing this plan, Van Foreest just simply plays bishop takes c5. All right, he speeds up the trade-offs. D takes c5, D takes c5, rook d8 check, king h7, and more pieces come off. So Van Foreest gives back the material, right, the piece, but he goes into a simplified position whereby he's up material at the end with this beautiful passed pawn on the b file. So queen d7, queen h5, knight e3, rook a8, queen b5, rook e8, queen a5, and that's an annoying pin that the queen and rook on a5 and c5 respectively have on that bishop that's on e5. And look where the queen is on h5. This is right up Jordan's alley, as he can just simply pin and win basically. So it forces Harikrishna to give up the pawn. So rook d5 is played. Now here, Van Foreest could have even played knight takes g4 here and eliminated another set of pieces. This was an option also. After queen takes g4, then just rook takes e5, and then it would have just been queen and rook versus queen and rook plus 2 pawns. Instead, he opted for rook d5, queen e7, and the pawn drops anyway. So now white is just up 2 pawns, and black does not have any adequate compensation. So this is an easy victory for white. Yeah, there was some tactics here, but needless to say, as they say in the chess books, white went on to win, okay, in 60 moves. So I'm just going to rapidly go to the end because black was lost for a long time. And I want to take you back to the position that I told you I would bring you back to, so that you can see the mistakes that black made. Because actually the sacrifice itself wasn't bad. I think Harikrishna went wrong in his preparation somewhere. This is where Harikrishna resigned after knight h6. Reason why he resigns here, because after knight h6 check, if king h8, then just f5, and there's really no stopping one of these pawns from queenie. You know, black will have to give up one of the pieces or something like that, you know, or be mated. So this is why Harikrishna resigned here. So I want to go back so that we can really learn from this, because after black misplayed their position, he really was lost probably from move 20 or so. So let's go back here. So f5, right? Nothing wrong with that. This move, right? Instead of course, if you don't know this stuff, you can just move the knight back. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, Harikrishna felt comfortable here and was willing to sacrifice the piece. So obviously, he didn't sacrifice the piece just so he could lose the game. So I'm thinking that somewhere he didn't remember something, or he like played a wrong move order somewhere. All right. So after f5, Van Foreest played d4. The first thing we have to look at here, though, is the obvious move, h takes g4. Okay, is that possible? So h takes g4, f takes g4, knight h2. So this is the idea, of course. Queen h4, and the threat of g3 is on the table. So let me just give black an extra move just to show you what it looks like black's plan in full motion, right? Without hindrance. So g3 would be played, and you can see the check is threatened on h2. So let's play knight h1, for example. Then just simply g takes f2 check, and you can see the rook on f8, the bishop on c5 supporting the pawn on f2 as well as the queen. Rook takes f2, and bishop takes f2 mate. That's one variation. The other variation, knight f3. Again, rook takes f3, brutal. Knight takes f3, and now bishop takes f2, check. Rook takes, pawn takes, king f1, queen h1, and now, say after king takes f2, then just queen takes d1. If king to e2, trying to protect the queen, then queen d1, king d1, and then f1 queen. So either way, white is going to lose the queen in the variation. So the threats of g3 are very serious. So let's continue now with our line. So of course, to protect against that, white will play queen e1, to protect the f2 pawn. And now rook takes f2. And now d4. All right. Now d4 blocks the diagonal, of course, of the bishop. All right. And this is why, again, this is part of the idea and the reason why Van Foreest played d4 instead of just h takes g4. He could have played it, but I'm sure he foresaw the difficulties in just taking the knight right away. So he threw d4 in. So here you can see what d4 is doing here. And of course, for black, it's important to keep this diagonal open. If he just plays, if black responds here with e takes d4, notice that the action of the bishop on c5 is still temporarily blocked. So here, white has opportunity to play a move like rook takes f2, and now he's threatening rook f8 check and picking up the queen there on h4. So d takes c3, of course, knight df1, right? Because you have to deal with the threat of g3. g3, knight takes g3, queen takes g3, knight f1, and a bunch of trades happen here. And this gives white the edge still. White still has the edge. White isn't totally winning, but white is still in the driver's seat because of two bishops. All right, of course he has the extra piece. And again, black's extra pawns aren't, really threatening at this point. All right, there's a lot of work to do here. So I would take white in this particular line here. Let's go back, because what I just showed you was e takes d4. The better move for black here is knight takes d4. Remember, we got to keep the lines open. So knight takes d4, c takes, bishop takes. Now notice the difference. Now the discovered check is still on the table for black. Rook e3, g3, knight hf3, queen h5, knight f1, bishop h3, and knight d4. If g takes, then queen takes h3, and black is winning there. Again, just to show you the dangers and the variation. So that's why knight takes d4 first, rook takes g2, and a lot of this stuff is forced. And I'm sure Pentala prepared it. E takes d4, knight takes g3, queen h4. Because you're not going to go into a line like this where you just sacrificing a piece without being prepared. But as you can see, there's like many nuances. And I'm sure he probably just overlooked something. Because I doubt that he just came up with the idea, that he was going to play this over the board, and he just, just went into it. Queen g4, rook e2. And then there's a brilliant idea by black, a sacrificial idea, which is d5. And now you see a bunch of highlights, which looks crazy, I know. But just bear with me here. d5 is an undermining sacrifice. Notice that, I'll go back. Notice that the bishop on c4 is helping to protect the rook on e2. So d5 is a deflection sacrifice. So if bishop takes, right? If bishop takes d5, then rook takes e2. So now you can see. If e takes d5, notice the e pawn is also holding the knight, keeping the knight secure on f5. So if e takes d5, then the knight is vulnerable on f5. You see? And that's the reason for d5 there being very powerful. And also it blocks the action of the bishop on the diagonal. All right, so that's the idea there. So bishop takes h6. I know it's crazy. D takes e4, bishop takes g7. And all of this just leads to a big draw. King h7, queen d2, rook takes, and then this is going to lead to perpetual queen e6, king h7, and then the queen will go back to h6. All right. So I showed you all of that, right? You're like, what did they show us that for? I showed you all of that so you could see that h takes g4, at least according to my analysis research, leads to a big gigantic draw. But again, you're not prepared as white. You probably be in a whole lot of trouble grabbing this knight right away. This is why I believe Van Foreest, probably not being ready for this, played d4, right? Of course, he looked deep in the position itself and played d4. Now the ball is in Harikrishna's court, and now Harikrishna goes wrong and plays e takes d4. To me, this move was a mistake right off the bat. And the reason is because, again, like I said, this move temporarily cuts the lines off for the bishop on c5. However, the big mistake is that it doesn't allow black's other pieces to be able to attack the white king properly. Here's the correct move. The correct move is knight takes f2 here. You're already willing to give up the knight. He's already weakening his king side with h3. So why not just explode the position when knight takes f2? Okay, so what happens? Knight takes f2, rook takes f2, e takes d4, knight b3, right, attacking the bishop, and now f takes e4. Notice how everything is open now. Knight f takes d4, rook takes, king takes. Knight e5, attacking the bishop on c4. The bishop goes back in a defensive posture, but now the queen comes in. King g1. Again, we just blow up the position. Bishop takes h3. Queen f1. And now bishop g4. Okay. Knight takes c5. D takes c5. Knight f5. Queen h5. Challenging the bishop. Knight g3. Hitting the queen. And now a bunch of pieces come off. Knight d3. Knight f4. And this position right here, again, is definitely more equal for black than the other position I showed you, where white had the two bishops and the black pawns were in a less threatening configuration. Here, black definitely has more chances. This position is probably closer to being equal than the other position. The rook and knight versus rook, bishop, and knight, but black having the 3 extra pawns. This is going to give black some extra chances. So to me, this was black's best opportunity to after d4, which to me was an excellent move. D4 by Van Foreest. To me, the best move after that is knight takes f2, because it opens up the king side and gives black the attacking chances that he's looking for. Notice after e takes d4, right, which was played in the game, watch the white's king side. So e takes d4, h takes d4, and then Harikrishna plays d3. Bishop takes d3, f takes d4, and now knight d4, c takes d4, bishop d4, and knight f1. Now look at the king side. White's king side is still pretty safe. Queen f6, queen c2. He just blocks off, he blocks a few threats, and now you see how safe white's king is. There's a big contrast between this position right here, right, where black really can't get to the white king at all. There's a big contrast between that position and this position right here. Now you see the difference. And of course, there's all types of ways to go wrong in this position. All right, so that is it for my analysis on that particular game. A very bold sacrifice by Harikrishna. The conclusion is that after d4, he probably should have played knight takes f2, and also the other conclusion is that taking the knight right away is pretty dangerous, especially if you're not prepared. So I think just facing it over the board, practical reasons, d4 is definitely better, but I think after knight takes f2, that black should be able to hold in that position also. So I hope you enjoyed that quick rundown. I hope the variations weren't too complicated and long, but I needed to share them with you to bring out the richness of the position there, and also to show you that sacrifice that Harikrishna made was not unsound. Don't judge by result. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, if you know who this female player is above me, let me know in the comments. If you're the first to know, I'll be glad to shout you out in the next video. And also let me know if you want to hear something, have me discuss a topic or a game or something like that. I'll be glad to do that for you. As a thanks for participating, and identifying these unknown players on the channel. Also, I want to let you know that Chess Audiobooks is also on Instagram, same name, on Twitter, same name, So follow me there. I'm also on Live Chess. Maybe I've played a few of you some games, so you can. I'm on Live Chess, same name. Also on chess.com, same exact name. So chess audiobooks is easy to find, and I'll be glad to play you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any questions, also please donate to my channel. That's the first link in the box below. Also below that, DVDs, books, on topics, subjects related to the video that I've presented today. So with that said, I hope you're enjoying the Tata Steel chess tournament as much as I am, and I'll see you guys soon on the next video. Thanks for joining me once again, and I'll see you guys later.